Joining us now in Spotlight is Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, Republican from the city of Livonia. Congressman, welcome back to Spotlight.
Nice to be back, Chuck.
Let's start with Iraq, which is just one of those issues that is obviously not going away anytime soon and is getting a lot of attention. In the House, you all recently had a resolution. Where did you weigh in on that?
Well, it was a non-binding resolution. It was my belief that it was one of the worst things we could possibly do because it did nothing. I have respect for my fellow Americans who've opposed this from the start and their moral consistency in opposing this, and people like myself who support victory and believe that we should do everything we can to prosecute the war to win. But this resolution did nothing.
Do you feel it was purely a symbolic resolution?
I think it was worse than that.
No teeth in it?
The time to debate whether or not the United States wins a war is before the war. The time to debate how the United States wins the war is during the war. Right now, we're seeing a situation where the United States Congress is debating whether or not we should win a war while our troops are in the field trying to win it. I think that is absolutely counterproductive, and I think that it's, to a certain extent, very dysfunctional for the United States Congress to be doing that.
What about public opinion? Public opinion overwhelmingly right now says, get out of Iraq. We've been there too long. It's not going the way the administration is telling us it's going. We want our sons and daughters home. Shouldn't that account for anything?
It accounts for a lot, but having been to the funerals of many of the soldiers from my district, eulogized one not too long ago, I remind you, Chuck, that during my floor remarks on this issue, I quoted from the Democratic Party platform where they said that we should seek peace immediately, where we support our troops and sailors in the field, and it was from 1864. What we've seen, again, is America are a people of peace. We do not like war. And yet when war is thrust upon us, we have to follow it through and we have to win. We also have to, in this instance, much like in the Civil War that we ourselves had, you have to emancipate an entire people so that you can extend liberty to them and thereby secure it for yourself. It is never a popular proposition, and it is a tragic situation. But the reality is, if we do not follow through and extend the emancipation of our liberty to the Iraqi people, that fledgling democracy will die.
A few weeks ago on this program, your Republican Michigan colleague, Joe Nolenberg, kind of senior-ranking Republican from Southeast Michigan, said that his patience is growing thin with the Bush administration on Iraq and the auto industry. Is your patience growing thin as well?
Well, I don't put it that way. I'm very disappointed that the administration still does not quite understand, as many members of Congress do not understand, is that our manufacturing crisis is a national problem. It is not a regional problem. It is not a local Detroit problem.
Well, before we get there, what about on Iraq? Do you feel as though the administration is taking us in the right direction on Iraq, or do you feel as though, you know what, you guys have lost your way and this doesn't make any sense, even though I may be supporting you?
Well, as you know, Chuck, I was one of the first people 3 years ago to talk about the fact that the Reconstruction Plan was absolutely backwards. They finally have that right. And one of the things that is overlooked in the talk about the troop reinforcement is the fact that the reconstruction process now is not some top-down Baghdad situation where it filters down, which it doesn't. It filters into all the wrong places. It starts at the local level. It starts in the neighborhoods, both in the provinces and in Baghdad, and then it starts to build up. So there's a tangible transactional benefit for this transformational change. I argued this as a change of course, quote unquote, 3 years, I think, before anybody else bothered to even look at it.
Will you vote for more money to go to the troops to Iraq? I realize that there's a certain pool of money that they're working with right now, but if the president comes back and says we need even more money, will you give them that?
I will give the troops whatever they need to accomplish their mission and come home to their loved ones, and I will also make sure that we spend the money properly in the right reconstruction process so that it's not simply a military situation. No one has said that anymore. No one claims that. It has to be twin pillars of clear out the terrorists and then have a reconstruction. And in fact, at this point in time, the military operation to remove the Saddam Hussein regime actually worked. It has been the failure of the reconstruction process to bring the Iraqi citizens on board because they did not feel they were part of this process.
A lot of people are being laid off in your district as well as other congressional districts here. What message can you send to the administration, to your other colleagues in Washington, Democrats and Republicans, about what Washington can do to help Michigan and Michigan's economy?
Well, the first thing, we've been very bipartisan in this. All 15 of us and our 2 senators understand that the auto industry has to survive and thrive into the 21st century. So we've been united on trying to go towards alternative energies, alternative fuels, so that Michigan can do for the autos what they did in the 20th century. We can do it through alternative fuels in the auto industry in the 21st century. Secondly, we're very blessed to have Chairman Dingell back at Energy and Commerce, and one of the things that I think our bipartisan coalition was successful in doing was stopping Speaker of the House Pelosi from taking jurisdiction away from John's Energy and Commerce Committee and handing it to a quote-unquote global climate change committee, which would have...
Feel that would have been a mistake.
It would have been dangerous to our auto industry and to the men and women who work in it.
Do you feel as though the playing field is level? Because that's what we hear from GM and Ford and Chrysler. They say, we don't want a bailout. We don't want a handout from Washington. We just want you to level the playing field, level the rules, make sure that it's fair trade, not unfair trade.
Well, it's all negotiated trade. There's no protectionism. That doesn't work. And it's not free trade. Otherwise, we'd be wiping the floor with the rest of the competition. What happens is you get to negotiated trade agreements that look like that. The situation that we have, which is why I voted against the Vietnam normalization of trade relations, we cannot trade with communist countries on a comparative advantage or a comparative basis of reciprocity. A lot of other people didn't feel that way, which is very frustrating, because there's this bipartisan coalition that seemed to think that we could continue to go to low-cost, quote-unquote, totalitarian countries and still survive within the auto industry. One of the things that we do have to do is to continue to make sure that in these types of agreements and in these types of endeavors is to make sure that that playing field is level. Now, it's not just level for the auto industry as the big 3, it also has to be level for the Tier 1 and Tier 2 auto suppliers who take the hit. They are the first ones, and much of the job loss we've seen has been in the Tier 2, Tier 1 auto suppliers, not just the big 3. We have to make sure that they're equitably treated in these agreements as well.
All right, quick final question. Presidential politics has begun already, even though the race isn't until 2008. Romney, Giuliani, McCain, they're all getting endorsements here in the state of Michigan. Have you signed up with one of them yet?
No, as a House policy chairman, I'm trying to avoid that. I'm not going to do that, because then if I put forward an agenda, someone can say you're doing it for a different reason than to try to help the House Republicans. And I'm not running, so I don't tend to worry about it then, you know. It's not really my problem.
And very quickly, you have a leadership role in the House Policy Committee. How important is that to the state of Michigan?
Well, I think it's important to have that perspective. I'm the only member from a blue state, and I'm and from the Midwest in the sense of a manufacturing base. I think that it's important to have the Detroit auto industry on our side of the aisle as well as on the Democratic side, because it's going to take both of us. So we have to have voices on both sides trying to put policies in place, both Republican, Democrat, and hopefully bipartisan, to get us out of this situation, or at least make it possible for the state to resurrect itself.
All right, Congressman McCotter, thank you for coming in. I wish we had more time. We will get you back, as we always do, and we'll pick up on the issues that we didn't get to this time around. All right, thank you so much.
Always issues, Chuck.
Always issues. We won't have to worry about that escaping us. Thanks so much.